Hi, I'm Rashonda Cade, and this is Rashonda's Reading Room, and we are starting with Pauline Hopkins. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Pauline Hopkins. I'm actually going to read it from this book, which is the magazine novels of Pauline Hopkins. And there's an introduction written by Hazel V. Carby. So I'm going to read you a little bit of the introduction so we can find out a little bit about Pauline Hopkins and what we are getting ourselves into. So this volume of Pauline Hopkins' three magazine novels, published for the first time since they appeared serially in the Colored American magazine between March 1901 and November 1903, is a significant contribution to the history of Afro-American cultural production. And then I'm going to skip down, and she talks a little bit about Pauline Hopkins. Pauline Elizabeth Hopkins was born in Portland, Maine in 1859, but lived most of her life in Boston. When she died in 1930, she was working as a stenographer for the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. As a high school student, Hopkins won a prize for an essay entitled Evils of Intemperance and Their Remedy, which had been submitted to a competition organized by William Wells Brown and the Congregational Publishing Society of Boston. As a young writer, Hopkins authored musical dramas, two of which, Colored Aristocracy in 1877 and Slaves Escape, or the Underground Railroad in 1879, were performed by various groups, including the Higher Sisters Concert Company. But Hopkins was unable to make a living as an author, and throughout the 1890s, she worked as a stenographer, at first for Republican politicians, and then for the Massachusetts Bureau of Statistics. It was not until Hopkins was nearly 40 years old that she became a published author of narrative fiction. And let's pause there for everybody who's in the over 30 group, the over 40 group. Your day is coming. God doesn't ordain for all of us to be super famous or everything, but he's got work for all of us to do. And if you feel like you haven't done your work yet, honestly, looking at yourself through the lens of these books we're going to read might actually help. So I'll keep going. Let's see. Her first novel, Contending Forces, was published in 1900 by the Colored Cooperative Publishing Company of Boston, which also published the Colored American magazine, where Hopkins' next three novels were serialized. And in case you don't know what a serialized novel is, it's a novel that's published in a magazine, whether weekly or monthly or however often the magazine is published, usually one chapter at a time. And so that's how, particularly in the 19th century, early 20th century, a lot of people got the novels that they read. They were passing around publications because they couldn't get them as easily as I get books on Amazon. That wasn't the thing back then. So a lot of novels were published serially. The first issue of the Colored American magazine appeared in May 1900, and during the next 4 years, the journal became the central focus for Hopkinson's intellectual activity. Within its pages, Hopkins published her three novels, 7 short stories, 2 major biographical series of articles on famous Black men and women, and numerous political and social commentaries and editorials. Hopkins was not only a prolific writer for the journal, but was also a powerful editorial force within it until, under the increasing influence of Booker T. Washington, the Colored American magazine moved from Boston to New York in June 1904 and became an organ of the National Negro Business League. So that's a little bit of background on Pauline Hopkins. We are going to read maybe all 3 of these novels. Probably. It's going to take a long time, but we're going to work through them together, and we're going to have writing prompts to help us think about what we're reading and what we're learning, and book discussions once a month about what the readings are and how they apply to our lives and the questions that we have. So that's what we have on tap for Rashonda's Reading Room. I'm so glad you're here. I can't wait for us to get started.